So I'm sitting here meditating, just doing my own thing, and I have this download because what I'm doing is I'm reading a bunch of esoteric text. Right now, I'm comparing the Hermetica, Corpus Hermeticism, and the Sefer Ba'ir, the Book of Light, and they all talk about manifesting, right? And like when you think about Atlantean alchemy, like what you end up thinking is generated. So like everything that's manifested is generated from something else, right? So manifest isn't our full perception of what we're experiencing when we think about like manifestation itself. Manifest is just the movement, which is the female, and then the generating or the creating on that moment is like putting a linear like scope or a male scope towards it. And then when you think about what, certain aspects of esoterica, like the corpus hermeticism tells you, hey, you know, God is good and everything that's generated is evil. You then think about, okay, well, like Atlantean alchemy tells us about generating. Then we look at corpus hermeticism that tells us like everything that's generated is essentially something created within matter. Therefore, it is evil. It is not fully like perceivable by God because this dimension has an underlying like evil to it, right? Because it's polarized, the third dimension. So then it brings us into this understanding that everything that is being created from the human perspective is the problem. So like when we're manifesting as a collective whole, like from the human perspective with what we have gained from humanity, we are then manifesting in a flawed scape because we inherited a bunch of ways of thinking about the world currently, right? From other people who inherited from other people. And we know that those programs that each person has inherited has been modified for better or worse. And that comes from a general scope of humanity. And then you're trying to understand the quantum or manifestation from the perspective of a human being, which is always going to be flawed because the human experience is ultimately flawed in the third dimension. So you then start thinking about like what Osiris says, gods are only immortal men and men are only mortal gods. And then you go into the Hermetica that ends up telling you that God is only good. Everything that you would know to be good would be something outside of the spectrum of reality that we experience here. Because matter that's being constructed is being constructed by a flawed programming that was created in the first place. So we're flawed, creating flaws, thinking that we're getting closer to source, when really the biggest illusion of all is to traverse human conditioning, recognizing like right now in this moment, everything that you have ever learned about manifestation, healing, quantum dynamics, yourself, everything, your past lives, all of that comes from a perspective of the human experience. Not all of them, because I have past lives as an alien in another dimension. Those don't count. But if you have many lifetimes on Earth, each one of those generates your perception in the now based off of your cosmic consciousness in the human or third dimensional perspective. Then you live your life and you experience all these downloads from other people, your parents, society, on what you should think and how the world actually works, which they're designing that design from flawed perspectives. And then you're here trying to manifest the ultimate reality for yourself when you haven't even realized that the biggest trap that you're in is even thinking that the dynamics of the universe could even be fathomable and be the ultimate truth from the human perspective. That means alchemy and everything else is flawed until you're able to grasp this moment where you're like, hey, the human perspective of understanding the reality is only this much of like a bigger whole. Just want to leave you with that. Send you all the love.